Hello, everybody. Welcome to the wonderful future world that is run by Trump. I am your host, Matt Dillahunty, here to welcome you on this glorious day of continued and even much more better winning. We just can't even stop the winning. I want to thank Seth and Forrest for filling in for me last week when I wasn't feeling particularly well. That was a wonderful show. Isn't everything great now? Thanks to Phil Ferguson for coming back this week, as he got bumped last week because I was not feeling well. Hey, look, Donald Trump has been president for a couple of weeks. Everything must be better now, right? Right? Of course not. What an obnoxious mess. There's still a war in Ukraine that was supposed to be fixed in a day after he got elected, and still dealing with that. He's now said that he wants us to take over Gaza and kick out everybody who lives there and find somebody to rebuild it into the Riviera of, the Middle East. Eggs are still going up. There's still problems with bird flu. Prices of eggs are going up. But boy, they've really done a number on those trans folks. You know, that 1% of the population that we desperately want to make sure aren't treated equally and that we use as a boogeyman and to fearmonger anyone and everyone to capitulate into doing what we want. For somebody who's opposed to allowing people to use their preferred pronouns and names, so much so that they're changing government regulations all over the place to remove anything that even comes close to a pronoun. They love renaming stuff. Trump proudly renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Even flew over the Gulf of America in the plane of America with the idiots of America, putting on a show for the other idiots of America, where he announced that he'd renamed it to the Gulf of America. And his suck-ups in the House and the Senate are struggling to find other things to rename as well. One individual, hearing how much Daddy Trump liked Greenland and would perhaps like to take over Greenland, has suggested that we rename Greenland to Red, White, and Blue Land. This is the reality that you and I live in. Now, I know it's not actually real. I'm waiting for somebody to step in and say, yes, we've been punking you the whole time. Red, White, and Blue Land. The United States just gets to rename whatever we want. We should name, for a lot of Americans, I know that, this is our heritage, but there's some confusion about what is England, what is Wales, what is Scotland, what is Ireland and Northern Ireland, and what parts of the British, Great Britain, and which parts of the United Kingdom. Let's just call that little mass there Old America. I mean, we've got the United States of America, we got the Gulf of America, that little collection of islands over there, that can be Old America. And for Canada can be just, if they don't want to be the 51st state, they can just be America's top hat. And we can do that for everything. We can name the ocean between the United States of America and Old America. We can name that the American Ocean. And, we'll do great business because maps are going to have to be, Google Map has already changed. They sucked up. They bent the knee right off the bat. Boom. Yep, we're going to call it the Gulf of America. Red, White, and Blue Land. Ooh, that's important. Hey, you know what? It's so good that Hegseth got Secretary of Defense and went ahead and got approved, because what was one of the first things he did? Why, he renamed Fort Liberty to be Fort Bragg again. See, the problem is that it used to be named Fort Bragg in celebration of a traitor to the United States and the Civil War general. And then they changed it to Fort Liberty. But it's so very important that we maintain that tie to our heritage to the losers, the insurrectionists who were big fucking losers, that we need to name it Fort Bragg again. But we can't let anybody know that we've named it after a problematic person. So, what did we do? Oh, we found some other military person whose last name was Bragg from modern history, who had received some awards, and now it's named Fort Bragg again, but it's named after a different Bragg. This is the extent to which these individuals will go. Will absolutely pretend that we didn't just rename this back to exactly what it was. We'll pretend that we're picking out a new name to represent a new soldier. They went looking for a soldier with the name they wanted so they could give an excuse for going back to the name they wanted. Why is it when they want a name, they get it no matter what? And when somebody else wants a name, no, you've got to use the one that's on your birth certificate. They've introduced new voting legislation, or new old voting legislation, that would require everybody to, as far as their official voter registration, it would be the last name that's on your birth certificate. They think they're sticking it to the trans folks again. Ha ha ha. The problem is, most conservative women in particular who get married take their husband's name. And that puts them in a position where their name no longer matches the name that's on their birth certificate, which means you could be removing some conservative women from the voter rolls over things like this. Now, I know they'll write in an exception, for cis folks, for the Adam and Eve folks, the coupled pair according to God and approved, because anything else would be anti-Christian bigotry, and we know we're working hard to make sure that we don't allow any anti-Christian bigotry. We want to make sure the bigotry is directed exactly where it needs to be, at the 1% of the population that's just finally starting to get something close to a reasonable, equitable share of rights and consideration. Nope. We are going to continue having Congress approve the clown car of appointments and cabinet secretaries. We are going to continue to allow Elon Musk full, unfettered access to whatever private information about you that he wants. He already had most of it anyway, because you gave it to him on Twitter. Not getting much that he didn't get before, except for, social security numbers and the ability to access payment systems and to know who's paying what, whom, and everything else. Despite the fact that he's not elected, has not been, gone through any legitimate process by which to gain a security clearance. We're just going to let, he's the richest man. And Trump's like, he's not gaming the system. What would he want to gain? I mean, the United States is trillions of dollars in debt. He's worth $400 billion. He's doing us a favor. He couldn't possibly make more money off of this. Either they're stupid or we're stupid. Which one is it? Either they're stupid or we're stupid. And it's probably both. The United States is an absolute embarrassment. And for all their talk about, we won on eggs, we won on eggs, we won on eggs. What is the price of eggs? I got into a slight discussion about this on Twitch the other day because I went and looked it up. And at my local grocery store, you can get a dozen eggs for about $5.70, give or take. You can also get a single dozen eggs for $11. And so whether or not, you can just walk in a grocery store and you can pick up and have a range from under $6 to $11 or $12 for one dozen eggs, not a dozen and 18 eggs, just one dozen eggs, because some of them are going to be, standard grade A large, and some of them are going to be extra large, and some are going to be organic, cage raised or cage free, grown out in the yard, only fed wheat from the field next door, however they want to do it. This is now what it's going to cost. And you can show eggs costing different prices. But what has the economy actually done? In the less than a month since he's been here, what's changed about the economy? How much credit or blame should Trump be getting at all? Because it takes time for markets to shift. How much of the shift was occurring before he took office on January 20th? How much of it took place afterwards? And not just what's happening with the price of eggs, but what's happening with trade wars and tariffs. For a peace administration, he seems to want to take over everything, Canada and Greenland and Gaza. And he also seems to want, them to come along peacefully, except I'm going to nudge you with tariffs. And he used tariffs in a brilliant way to get Canada and Mexico to do exactly what they'd already agreed to do and pretty much nothing more. So I thought I understood tariffs, but evidently I don't. So welcome Phil Ferguson in here from the Phil Ferguson Show and Skeptic Money to explain tariffs and anything and everything having to do with the economy and how great and or fucked up it may or may not be. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. How you doing? I almost thought that you had been converted there at the beginning, that you were playing out a scene from Big Brother in 1984. It took them 41 extra years to get us to 1984, but here we are. We are rewriting history. Anything that had a grant or was done by the government that was published, they're going back and republishing, correcting all these studies that talk about women and yanking that out, talking about minorities and yanking that out. My wife is working on a master's in public health, and we live in Florida. And she has been informed that there's at least 15, if not 20 words that she may not use when she's submitting papers and documents, even at the University in Boston. Yeah.
Gender, pronouns, diversity, inclusion,
and of course,
equity.
I now I've got to make sure I define my terms. I now describe Trelon. That's Trump and Elon.
Yes.
Trelon.
That's President Trelon.
President Trelon. And the one part, Elon, he has had a gender affirming care. He's had
Loads
some little surgeries and hair enhancements to make him look more manly, because his hair was very, very thin from a young age. But he's got a thick head of hair now, so it's okay for him to get gender affirming care, but not anybody else. So he gets to choose, but others don't. The tariffs are nefarious, and it's been a generation, 2 generations maybe, of trying to dumb down America, and it worked. There's a lot of people who don't know at all how a phone works, how a car works. I'm a big advocate for electric vehicles. People don't know how electric vehicles work. They'll say, but there's no way our power grid can handle electric cars. And I can go through the math if somebody really wants me to, a caller maybe. At least in general, the amount of electricity that a gasoline car uses is more than an electric car uses. That just as a way to frame it, to blow people's minds, because to get oil out of the ground, you have to pump it with electricity. Or you have to use refined diesel or gasoline. You can't burn the oil that you're pumping out of the ground because it's toxic. And then, so you got to pump it out of the ground. You got to pump it into a tank. And then you got to pump it into a truck or a pipeline. Then you got to push it hundreds or thousands of miles, or have trucks drive thousands of miles. A lot of oil that is refined in the United States comes from Canada. And it has to go from the Canadian border all the way down to Louisiana, mostly, to get refined. And the amount of energy that is used to refine crude oil into diesel, jet fuel, race car fuel, gasoline, kerosene, all the different compounds, a phenomenal amount of electricity is used. After the refining process is done, it has to be put in all of the appropriate storage containers with electric pumps. And then electric pumps pump it into a tanker or to a pipeline to be distributed out as gasoline or kerosene or jet fuel. And then those trucks burn diesel or gasoline, again, eating into the efficiency of the production. And then it goes to a gas station. And here's where you get one freebie. When the tanker truck shows up at a gas station, gravity allows you to move the gasoline from the tanker truck into the storage tank underneath the gas station. But then when you want gas in your car, you need electricity again to run the electric pump to lift up the gasoline and filter it and put it into your car. Because I'll have people tell me, well, when the hurricane comes and the electrical grid goes out, how far are you going to be able to go in your electric car? Well, I picked an electric car that gets really high mileage. And if I go slow, I can go 400 plus miles. And they'll say, well, how are you going to refill it if electricity is out? How are you going to refill your gasoline?
Yeah.
And then they go, well, but the gas station will have a backup generator. Okay. An electric station can have a backup generator too. So, but I just don't think through that. It's not almost any excuse to justify the position that they've already taken. It is a lot like religion. And that's why the work that you do on your show, and I'd like to think in a small way, the work I do on my show, the Phil Ferguson Show, by the way, where we talk about money, politics, and religion. People that have spent their lives being convinced to believe things without evidence will continue to believe things without evidence. And Trump or JD Vance will tell them something and they just go, yep. But how do I justify that? And here's the argument. And then they use the argument. And like I said, with religion, it doesn't have to be a good argument. It only has to be good enough to make them feel like they just provided a good argument, even though they didn't. So I had someone, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we've got some calls here queued up, and I know I want to get calls, but just for clarity, let's say I'm Canada and you are the United States of America, and I'd like to sell you a barrel of crude oil, and you have now applied a tariff to my barrel of crude oil. Of what amount are you going to set there per barrel?
What amount am I going to set? Well, it's probably bought on a commodities market, so it's not necessarily Canada and or the United States setting a price. It's a global thing, which is why
I'm trying to work out just a quick example with the math so that people can see that when I'm Canada selling you a barrel of oil and you as the United States add tariffs to it. So like if I want to make, if I'm going to sell this barrel for $100, so that's what I need to sell it to you for $100. That's what gets me the profit that I'm looking to get.
This profound idea that we can raise revenue with tariffs, it's true. But who pays the revenue? It's not fucking Canada. It's not China. Most items that come into the United States, and I don't know about oil specifically, but there has to be an importer that brings those products in, and they have to follow all of the legal requirements to import products from other countries. And let's just pretend for a moment this is the same thing with oil. When they bring it in and they put it on their books, they pay Canada, let's say $70 for a barrel of oil. I don't even know what the price of gasoline is or oil is today, but let's say it's $70. If there's a 25% tariff on it, well, then they have to add 25% to that price. The importer adds that money out of their pocket and sends it to the U.S. government and goes into the general fund, which can be used to pay any bills whatsoever. But then that importer didn't pay 70 for the gasoline or for the oil. They paid 70 plus 25%, which is going to be another 714.
See, this is why I said $100 a barrel. As Canada, I'm going to sell you this barrel for $100. And if you put a 25% tariff on it, then so now whoever imports it in the United States pays $125 to Canada.
Right. No, they pay $100 to Canada and $25 to the U.S. government.
Exactly.
But that importer then has to mark up. And here's where it gets really insidious, where a lot of people don't understand. Often products go through multiple hands, and each person that has to transport it, massage it, stock it, inventory it, sell it, just deliver it. Everybody's got to get their cut. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. That's what capitalism is. You don't do anything for free. So not only did the price of oil go from 100 to 125, but when that importer pay 125 total, if their markup is 20%, when they used to sell it for 120, now it's 125 plus the 20 plus another 4 or 5%. So they're now selling it for 145, 150. And then that goes to the refinery perhaps, and then they mark it up, and then they mark it up. So you get these stacked markups, and the price goes higher and higher. So a 25% tariff could end up costing the end consumer dramatically more than 25% because everybody wants a percentage cut. And so the consumer is going to get potentially overwhelmed with dramatically higher prices from anything that comes from overseas, anything that has parts that come from overseas, anything that's assembled from overseas. And there is a possible nuanced argument that tariffs can be good if done in a thoughtful, clearly articulated, timely way where everyone knows months or years in advance what the tariffs are going to be, how they're going to build, how long they're going to stay in place, and then over time when they're going to go away to protect domestic businesses from that industry or in that industry. But this idea that it's 25% on everything from Canada. Oh, no, Canada did something they already promised they were going to do, but I made them do it. And so now it's going to be the 25% tariff is removed. It's a weapon. It's a club to negotiate with, and Trump is purely transactional. So he thinks that he got something, and he can tell his followers that he got something, and they all cheer him on. They're happier than fucking ever because he got Canada to do something about something that wasn't really a problem. But you can do that a couple times maybe, but the country that you're doing that against gets more and more resistant to it. And I think in this case, there's an unintended psychological consequence to the average Canadian who, I mean, when you piss off, it takes a lot to piss off a Canadian, and they're pissed off. I have friends. I have a Canadian friend. I have friends from Canada. I know people from Canada. I see the memes that they're sharing in Canada. Stores, started with liquor stores and then with the grocery stores, all kinds of stores are yanking out all of these American products, fucking whether there's a tariff or not, and they're shipping it back to the distributor, which ships it back to the manufacturer in the United States, and they have to find a new buyer for that, or they have to cut production, and it's already going to happen. And those people, the consumers, the average person of Canada says, I don't want to be dependent on the United States to the level that I'm dependent on it. I'm going to buy Canadian, or I'm going to buy something from England or from France or from Japan, and they'll find ways to work around it. If many countries start doing that, these countries will do more and more business with each other and less with the United States. And then the United States economic power becomes weaker. And this is an offset, a way to work around the threat of tariffs. Because if you're not buying from the United States, if you're not selling from the United States, and Canada's also being very wily. They're putting on very specific tariffs to fuck with certain people. So as an example, they just signed a new contract for all of their oranges and orange juice to come from Venezuela and not Florida. That was really big news here in Florida. So
the thing that I had in my head this interesting interaction of I'll be Canada, you be the United States. Let's walk through where the actual money's going, like almost a vaudeville bit. But we got in part to where I was wanting to get, because if I'm Canada and I business in Canada and I want to sell $100 barrels of oil to the United States and you put a tariff on them, then whoever buys my barrel there is going to pay that tariff, and that cost is going to get passed on to the consumers. But the intent of putting tariffs on that is to get these purchasers in a normal circumstance to say, you know what? I'm not paying an extra $25 to get a $100 barrel from Canada when I can buy a $100 barrel from Korea and only, put a $2 thing on top of it. So that's how ideally Canada's supposed to get punished, that Canada will lose business because the people in the United States will buy from somebody else. But the problem, which is what Phil was getting to, that there's a ton of problems, is that once the other markets see this, they get to raise their price in competition, and they can trade back and forth with Canada without those tariffs.
Right.
And so you get this tap dance where the tax that you're putting on it is being paid by you, and you are increasing, because every step in the chain, as Phil was talking about at the beginning, every step in the chain adds a potential cost to it. If you come and buy your snake directly from my house, that's a better deal than if we have to go to an expo, which is still a better deal than if, we need to box it up and pay FedEx to overnight it to you. And if all of a sudden, Alabama puts a 20% tariff on everything, it's not going to change how much I can sell for, because I can also sell outside of Alabama,
And the extra problem with oil is because it's fungible around the globe. The only problem that Canada might have is if they can't ship the oil into the United States, where are they going to ship it? Well, they have completed the Trans-Canadian pipeline that goes all the way over to the Pacific Ocean. And instead of the oil going all the way through the United States down to the Gulf of America, it can go all the way west now to the Pacific Ocean and then get shipped to on cargo ships, tanker ships, to Japan to be refined. And so just like Germany, when they got cut off from German oil or from Russian oil and natural gas, they bought it from somewhere else at a higher price. But then those bounds get weaker. So countries might say, hey, we get 20% of our energy from American liquefied natural gas. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. Instead of spending billions of dollars and sending it to the United States, we're going to spend billions of dollars on solar panels from China and wind turbines from wherever wind turbines are made, maybe made in country, and we're going to have energy independence, and the United States just gets fucked. So that's the kind of stuff that Trump can't think about. Trump can't even contemplate this idea that other people would work together, even if it's not necessarily in their best interest, but just out of spite. One of the other proposals, I don't know that it's passed, but Canada was suggesting putting 100% tariff on Tesla cars only. Just to screw, because Elon is Elon. And the funny thing is that they don't even, I don't think, they're not at a point where they don't even need to do that, because almost no one in Canada is going to buy a fucking Tesla.
Well, the other thing is that they've discontinued the Incel Camino, the Cybertruck. It's a miserable failure that they are ending.
I don't know if I'd go that far with it, but
I thought the announcement just came the other day that they have decided to completely discontinue.
I could have missed it because they have a huge back inventory, because they originally had globally 2 million pre-orders. And yeah, please look it up. And they sold something like 40,000 in the United States last year, which is more than any other electric truck. So it's still sold. But the problems are higher than average. It's complicated. Can't drive it in the winter because the snow piles up into the little groove where the lights are and you can't see.
Tesla sold about 25,000 Foundation Series Cybertrucks before ending the program. They've removed all Foundation Series Cybertrucks from their inventory page.
That was the top tier, the $100,000 one. It's now $120,000 one. And they've rebadged. So they've gone in and unglued the Foundation badges, and now it's the lower level. And so now they're selling them for 90 and 80,000 and 70,000. And I've read multiple stories where people are like, I got ripped off. I paid 110,000 for this truck, and now I can go buy a new one a year later for 70,000, and mine is used worth 50,000. Yeah, you got fucked. Elon fucked you. Good job.
We got callers ready to go here. We're going to do a mix. I see that there's some theist callers that I want to get to, but Mary's calling from Florida with a question for Phil. So we're going to tee one up for the guest right off the bat. Hey, Mary, how are you?
She's got some dogs. Hey, Mary.
Okay. Is Mary there, or is it just Mary's dog?
I'm Mary. Can you hear me?
We're here, Mary. You're live.
Okay, thank you. Somebody knocked on my door just as y'all called my name. and I ran them off because they had I don't know what they were doing, but anyway, I don't let
Okay.
people, I don't know. Anyway, it's great to see you, Matt and Phil. Phil, I wanted to ask you, hon, do you have a weekly call-in show for financial questions?
I don't, but maybe I should. Maybe I'll talk to Matt, and who knows? Maybe there's a future line show where I can do weekly. Well, I don't know about weekly, but maybe I'll do a monthly live call-in show. That sounds like it could be fun. But you have me right here. What would you like to know?
Well, right before, right after Trump got elected, um, I was worried about the money that we have in stocks that I don't have a clue about. My husband takes care of all of that. And it's like we have we had $1 million in some spot and 500,000 in another stock, and I begged him. We talked about it 3 different times, and I was like, please, Trump could cause a depression and get that million we have moved somewhere where it won't be affected.
Yeah,
And so
I understand the essence of your question, and thank you for that. And I won't be able to give you very specific personalized investment advice here, but if you contact me, I don't know, Matt, can I give my email? Is that cool?
Yeah.
Phil
Yeah,
at polarisfinancialplanning.com.
what is it? Tell me again.
Sure. Phil at polarisfinancialplanning.com.
Okay. So
And we
he
can
did.
talk about specifics, but what I want to do, Mary, is take you as an example of many, many people that have the same concern. And so one of the things that I do, I don't sell any products. I started studying long ago, at least theoretically, what's the best way to invest? That's what fascinates me. How do you make the most money? And potentially for some people right now, the agenda, the goal, the objective is no longer how to make the most money, but how to make a reasonably good amount of money while protecting yourself from getting fucked. And so
Right.
there's different ways you can do that. The language that I use in my model and in my podcast is called the cushion, which is generally a tricksy way of saying bonds. But you could put a generous portion, and the right portion is different for everybody. And a lot of advisors will go on TV and say you should have 40% or 60% or 90%. It depends. It depends on your situation, which is why you and I will have to talk about this privately. But set up a portfolio that can protect you in case the market goes down. It sounds like you're either
Right.
in or close to retirement. Does that sound right?
Oh, that's complicated. I'm retired,
Okay.
and my husband was about to retire. He had turned in his paperwork, and
Sure.
then they came out because he's a DOD employee. And then it came out where Trump said all federal workers need to resign. And so,
All right.
or take admin leave with pay.
Yep.
And
So
so
what
he
I'll do is yeah, I don't want to get too many
rescinded.
specifics because there's a lot of people listening to you. I don't want you to reveal information, but like I said, we'll
I'm
talk
not.
about it.
Not.
But I'll say you're close to retirement, really close on the edge, and so there's things that one can do in portfolio design that will still give you long-term growth because hopefully you're around 20, 30 years. You might have kids or nieces and nephews, cousins, uncles, whoever that gets the money in case something happens to you. So we don't want to go too crazy and get too conservative, but there's things that we can
Okay.
do to set aside some money to make sure you can get through the Trump years.
Okay. But so Trump and Musk, co-president Musk, everybody resigned. And so my husband rescinded his paperwork for retirement and said, I'll wait and take admin leave with pay.
Yeah, I understand the logic of the choice. However, I am not convinced that anyone's ever going to get what they were promised. The idea, I mean, Trump is a nefarious philanderer, and he's a notorious cheat. And so is Elon. And if
Con
you think
man,
that you're
yeah,
going to
we all,
get, yeah, if you think you're going to get the next 8 or 10 or 12 months of pay for not working, I'm gonna say you're not. I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be wrong. I don't know. I don't know the future. But it's something
They don't
that you
pay the
can
people
do.
who do work half the time.
Yeah, yeah. And so I do want to take, and Mary, what I'd like to do is move on from your specific, and thank you for calling. Please email me and we can talk about that. But I want to cover a general subject if I can, Matt, because I worry that you got a lot of people listening, and I'm talking about some math stuff and investing stuff that not everybody understands or knows about. And so the ideas I talk about may be general and they may not work for you. So don't get too carried away. If you are
yeah.
12, 14, 15 years from retirement, ignore what I just said to Mary. It doesn't apply to you. If you're 15 years from retirement and Trump fucks everything up and the market falls by half, what you should do is keep piling money in because the market's on sale. And when it all gets fixed, it'll come back up. Now, your counter argument, which could be a rational one, would be to say, but Phil, what if he fucks it up so bad that it's all over? Well, if that happens, it doesn't matter where you put the money. So I can't plan for an event that's never occurred. I can only use probabilities and statistics and historical norms. Maybe that's not a wise thing to do, but it's all I got to try to figure out how someone near retirement or in retirement might want to build their portfolio in such a way that they're protected in case the market goes down, and they have enough in bonds, as an example, to wait out those years for the market to come back. So hopefully
But
that
like
helps people.
they said, when they said federal employees need to just resign, he said resign effective September 30th because the new fiscal year for the Navy or military or DOD starts October 1st. So he's waiting. He's so pissed at fucking Trump. He said, I'm not gonna let him. I'm gonna piss off Trump. I want admin leave with pay, and then when that ends, I'm gonna retire and get my retirement.
Yeah, I understand the concept and I support the psychology of it. I just
Yeah,
Elon,
but it's all
Elon is going to do something that fucks you anyway. So I don't know what to tell you.
no. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
And I know y'all want theists, and but I will find you and DM you and see, because I didn't want to lose everything we had, our 401k, and
I understand that there are reasons to be concerned, but there are no reasons to panic. So take a deep breath.
But we got to take all of it offline.
Yep. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Good night, Matt.
Good night. Take care. We had a few callers on here. A couple of them dropped. We do have a theist caller that's calling in specifically about the Quran's verses with regard to how mankind was formed. So Noah's calling from Tennessee. Noah, what's going on?
Hey, how are you guys? Thank you for having me.
We're good.
All right. What's up?
Yeah, I'll get right to it. I realized as I typed this out, it might more so be a question that pertains to abiogenesis more so than just the Quran. But I've read most of the Quran, and to my knowledge, the verse that I'm referring to, and I apologize to any Muslims that I might be offending by misquoting the Quran, but I believe the Quran says something along the lines of mankind came from a clot of dirt, and then from there was a sperm cell, and then evolved from that point. Does that sound about right, Matt? I know you're a little bit more educated on the Quran.
I'm not an expert on the Quran, but yeah, it basically starts with the notion of a drop of mud, a bit of mud or clay, and then continues from there. But I'm not clear on the specific.
I do have a question, Noah, if I can jump in.
Yeah, please.
You expressed concern that you may not have your understanding of the Quran correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been really fucking nice if the book was clear?
That's the age-old question, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a,
you apparently have studied it. I haven't. I really don't know anything, but you've studied it and you've come up with some ideas. But you're at least aware that there's gonna be a whole bunch of other people that are probably gonna disagree with you, and you're reading from the same book. Wow.
and it's what I've learned. Matt, I really want to thank you because you've really educated me to this topic. But Phil, yeah, that's one of the problems I learned with faith is like if everyone is going off of this mechanism by which everyone is getting to a different answer, how is it that we're supposed to? Who do we determine is right? How do we determine anyone is right at all? So
I love where you're going with this because I think, but you've conflated two different topics. One is the interpretation of a book, and we could have language issues, we can have translation issues, we could have people adding and removing text over hundreds of years. I think a separate issue is the idea of faith, because as I know it, faith is believing in something without evidence. And the funny thing is, if you believe in something without evidence, you have no evidence to back up what you believe and that it's reasonable to believe in any way whatsoever. So as soon as you attempt to apply verses from a book or from what someone translated for you or what a religious leader said, now it's no longer faith. You're doing it on some kind of evidence. And if everybody's claims to knowledge and evidence don't agree, why not throw it all out, set it aside, and then only believe the things that you can be shown are true?
And it's funny you say that because I had a similar train of thought just the other day, and it was like, we all, let's say Matt has faith that that if he drops that pen, or let's go with the pen, it'll fall. And I have faith that if he lets it go, it'll suspend in midair.
That's not faith.
Yeah, I know where Matt's going. It's confidence. I would use the word confidence there. Matt might use something different, but
I have mountains of evidence that if I were to let go of a pen, it's going to fall.
Yeah,
I have just a massive amount of evidence. It's not faith. It is a reasonable expectation based on the past is not faith.
Yeah.
No, you're totally right, and I didn't say that as well as I did. Let's assume,
it's beautiful.
Like,
it's beautiful. You phrased it wonderfully, and it's a common language is tricky. I've taught myself Italian. Yeah. I'm now working on Spanish, and sometimes, like in Spanish, there's two verbs for one verb in English, and it racks people's minds which one. Like, am I supposed to use tomar or llegar to take something or bring something?
I've learned Spanish language is flexible. I know a little bit of it. It's tricky when you translate.
But was there a question or something you were getting to with regard to the Quran?
Yeah. So, and this is where I was saying it might refer more to it might be a more abiogenesis question. Like devil's advocate, right? Okay, this is what the Quran says. All right, let's follow this. Would it even have been possible for, because like the whole question is what came first, chicken or the egg? Is it even possible scientifically for the semen to have through whatever means the semen existed before we had the man, like the human, to produce it and then further, mate with a female and then so on and so forth? Does that question make sense? If it doesn't, let me know.
I think I got some ideas, but Matt, what do you got?
So all of the available evidence suggests that semen comes from males. But it's not the same. Sex doesn't work the same way for every species, and et cetera. And so there is within the evolution of life both individual speciation events, which are dependent on sex that requires sperm and egg, and then there are other species that don't require a sperm and egg. But what we can say is that every new being is the same species as its parents, because change doesn't happen. Speciation changes don't happen in individuals. They change. There are changes to populations over long periods of time. And so this group of birds and this group of birds are divided by something. And over a long period of time, the offspring from this group of birds can no longer breed with the offspring of this group of birds. And that is one potential way that kind of speciation occurs. So
And
your question was, is it even possible for there to be sperm before there's a male? And the answer is, what difference does it make if the book's going to claim that God magically did it? You're asking a question about what's scientifically possible on behalf of a being that can evidently violate what we know to be scientifically possible.
Mm-hmm.
Other things that you could research, there have been many documented cases where fish in isolated ponds that are cut off from other members of their species that will spontaneously, the women will spontaneously give birth to female and male fish, even though there's only female left in that collection of species. So there's a case where a descendant is born male that has sperm, and there wasn't sperm provided by a male to create it. If I understand it right, and I'm not a biologist, so that's one thing. And even, of course, Jurassic Park taught us that females may lay eggs and they can germinate on their own or by another female. Of course, that's fiction, but so is the book. So
we didn't need Jurassic Park. I breed reptiles. Yeah. Reptiles are not infrequently prone to parthenogenic reproduction, but also there are entire species of lizards that always only reproduce parthenogenically. So.
Okay, that's good to know. But I appreciate that, because I was expecting like a yes or a no, but you guys gave me a lot more to think about. So thank you.
A fun thing to think about, the classic chicken and the egg. There is a clear answer. It's the egg. There were eggs long before there were pterodactyls, long before there were chickens. So eggs came first. You're welcome.
Okay, so I appreciate that. If I was going to, so I'll take that. If I was going, what could I research like to learn how we came to that conclusion that we know it was definitely the egg that came first?
Well, you're going to have to study evolution. There's classes, there's books, all kinds of books. Just
you guys are talking past each other. You guys are completely talking past each other, because Phil is talking about egg in the sense of any egg, not just a chicken egg. And the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, is which came first, the chicken or the chicken egg. And so not just whether or not egg occurred at, in various species across time. So we know that an ovum existed prior to whatever we're going to end up calling chicken, but because you can't evolve out of a clade, whatever chickens descended from produced eggs that ended up producing chickens. And at the end of the day, it doesn't, sexual reproduction with or without an ovum is not isolated to necessarily one lineage. And so if you're going to ask which came first, everything was the species of whatever came before it, whether or not that species that laid the egg or the species that laid the eggs that became what we later called chickens, at what point they became chickens is a separate issue, but there was definitely an egg.
Okay. And my hope, Matt and Noah, was to hopefully inspire, if I can use the word, for Noah to go find some research outside of the one book that he's reading to learn a little bit more about how evolution
Well, that's works. Not what's going on with Noah, though.
Is it, Noah? Are you going to go learn how evolution works?
No, definitely.
Noah's been learning stuff.
I'm sorry, I missed the part.
No, go ahead, Noah.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, definitely. I'm kind of new to critical thinking and philosophical thinking, but yeah, I'd like to learn more about evolution, abiogenesis, which was a topic that I learned about on the atheist experience. So thank you for that, Matt. But yeah, like similar topics. I guess in a nutshell, a lot of the claims that religious texts claim to make about how mankind was formed and what at the time were unexplained, I guess for lack of better terms, phenomena, how we now know scientifically through biology through evolution or so on and so forth, how we know that these claims are blatantly incorrect or have yet to be verified. So no, thank you for that, Phil. I appreciate your insight. Thank you both.
It's not a problem, Noah.
Cool.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Noah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
See you later. Oh,
I like
crap.
Noah.
I think Noah
he's a
was getting ready to add something else. All right. Mick is calling from Australia. Mick is an atheist. Pronouncing him something. You want to say something about anti-abortion belief or something? What's going on, Mick?
Oh, g'day again, Matt, and g'day, Phil. It's good to see you. It's been a while. I just wanted to do a bit of a segue here. You were talking about Trump before, and everyone's well aware of the January 6th pardons because it's been so publicised. But I'm sure you guys are aware that it's not just those guys, but a whole bunch of other crooks who he's let out. For example, he let out that...
I'm sorry. The screening thing says here you wanted to ask a question about ensoulment and anti-abortion.
Yeah, I was doing a segue into it. Sorry.
I don't need you to go through Trump stuff.
We hear that all day, man. We're good, Mick.
Yeah.
But thanks for thinking of us.
Enough.
We appreciate
that's all right. I just wanted to say pardon a whole heap of abortion clinic invaders and all that as well. Anyway, you guys would be far more aware of the position is. What is the current position where Christians believe that the soul enters the body? They're claiming, I think, that it enters at the moment of conception. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that. No. I think every different branch might have a different answer to that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one of the problems that they claim to be together when it benefits them. But then they're the first ones to fight with each other and argue with each other. We don't even know from Christianity when is someone saved. Are they saved by fate, like a Calvinist thing? It's predetermined. Are they saved when they're baptized? Do they have to accept Jesus into their heart? There's a dozen different ways that you get saved. So when the soul enters a body, whether it's a twinning event or a prenatal death, different groups of Christians have different answers. So you'd have to ask them.
Okay. Isn't it interesting how they like to follow the Old Testament in some things, but not other things? I was watching Aaron Ra the other day on one of his talks, and he was talking about the ancient beliefs at the biblical times. Now, in that period in time, they believed that because the air is spirit, that the soul didn't enter the body until the baby was born, and when the baby took its first breath, that was when the soul entered the body. So they keep chopping and changing everything.
Well, again, the Bible's a really big book, and there's a lot of words, and you can find textual support for life entering the baby at birth, but you can find arguments for other stuff, or they just ignore certain verses and go with what they want. So, it just depends on the point you're trying to make. If you're arguing that it could be at birth, I'll love it. Because if I'm talking to a Christian that thinks a soul is put in at conception, I can quote chapter and verse and convince them it's at birth, or try to convince them it's birth just to mess with them. But you can't start by thinking how Christians think on a subject like that, because they're all going to be different.
Absolutely. Even every Christian's got their own opinion of what God is. So yeah. It's unbelievable, isn't it? All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good day, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks, Mick.
Hey, cheers, Mick.
A long distance call, man. Wow.
All right. There's nothing about that call that was what I was expecting.
It's a night.
It was like, I want to know what Matt's opinion is on the ensoulment thing with regard to anti-abortion. And I'm like, cool. Is somebody going to present an argument that they heard or whatever? And then we can maybe address it.
A few years ago, a group pretending to be atheists against choice. I talked to some of them. I actually had tables next to them in a few different conventions, and I would be within earshot of them for days. And when there was no one else around and they forgot that I was at the table next to them, they were clearly religious. It was all just a show. But what are you going to do?
Well, I had a debate with at least one of them who, their reasons for their opposition to abortion were absolutely remnants of their Catholic upbringing. And so it's like, I'm an atheist, but I'm going to argue on behalf of, Catholic notions and see if I can't come up with a secular justification for them. And so it's,
see where the Pope wrote a letter to Trump and Vance and gave him a smackdown from the Pope? Not a joke.
No,
he actually wrote a letter. The thought that I had is, when you have to be told by the guy who's running a cult of pedophiles that your behavior is immoral, it's gotten out of hand. So,
yeah, we do have theist callers calling in. So Chuck is a theist who's going to educate me on tariffs and a possible system of God proof based on consciousness and art. Okay, Chuck. So tell me all about tariffs that I didn't know.
Okay. So, hello, Matt. Always a pleasure. And hello, Phil.
Buongiorno.
What?
Buongiorno.
Can you guys hear me?
We can. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So, I listened to the opening, when you guys started the show, and what you guys were talking about with tariffs and the example you gave with the barrel of oil and the $100. And I feel like that view is a little myopic. So I'm hoping, when I say educate, explain how I understand the Trump's approach to tariff to you.
I'm sorry. Right? Do tariffs work differently for Trump than anybody else?
No. I'm not saying work differently.
Then it doesn't. Then again, it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter what your opinion of Trump's view on tariffs is. Well, what did we get wrong about tariffs?
Well, I think Matt, if I can jump in, Chuck, I'm going to try to strongman your argument for you. With Iron Man,
I haven't made an argument yet.
I know, but we think we know where you're going, and I want to make sure that we do understand where you're going. You could go down the path where you're arguing that what we talked about, particularly what Phil talked about, was wrong, or you could go down the path to say what Phil said was right, but there's a bigger picture of stuff that Phil didn't talk about or Phil doesn't understand. Which path are you going?
The latter.
Okay.
The latter.
Okay. So are you accepting as factually true what we discussed earlier, and you just want to add to it?
Yes, basically. Okay. Yes. Better way to word it. I thought educate sum that up, but
that's okay. It's a potential problem, and maybe it's just me as the listener.
It's really funny if you agree with everything that we said and we got it right, to call in and say that you're going to educate us and that our view is myopic may not be the best way to say everything you said was correct, but I'd like to add to it.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say, Chuck, is Matt shortened it for me. Don't tell someone you're going to educate them, because then we automatically are defensive, but say, hey, I liked what you guys had to say. I agree with you, but I have another thought about the concept that I'd like to share with you. So let's assume
that's a fair criticism.
We're already at that point, Chuck. I think I now understand where you want to go. Whether you're right or not, I don't know yet, but tell me what other thing are we missing? I would like to know.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about the tariffs of the people, the importers are going to pay more money. So for example, the $100 barrel of oil that they would normally pay will now be $125, right?
Yeah.
Understanding Trump's incentive for this. For example, if there are other American U.S. manufacturers of oil, right? And let's say it used to cost $150. It will cost that importer $150 to do business with the U.S. It saves them money to go to Canada to get the $100 barrel of oil, right? It saves them that $50. But now,
wait.
With
Chuck. Am I correct that when we suggested, just as an example, a $100 barrel of oil from Canada that would have a $25 tariff on it, that you're suggesting maybe somebody out there is selling it for $150, so the $125 Canada one would still be a better deal? Is that your counter?
Yes.
I think
If you let me,
This is the
if you let
dumbest
me
fucking
finish.
thing I've ever heard. How dare you
If
call in
if you
and
let me
suggest?
finish,
How dare you call in and suggest you're going to educate people by inventing a fictional higher priced thing as an excuse? That is just like saying, "Hey, yes, technically I did repeatedly beat my spouse, but I could have beaten her much, much worse, so she should be grateful." Fuck off, Chuck. I don't care what you
hold
think.
on, Matt.
You're a
Hold
waste.
on, Matt.
No,
Phil,
don't you dare
I don't
fucking
think you understand.
don't you dare fucking tell me to hold on. I'm going to mute you, and I'm going to leave you on mute while I wait for some other caller who actually gives a shit and wants to engage and doesn't pretend like they know a subject better than other people, and instead is going to argue it by just blatantly making shit up. You, Chuck, are a monumental waste of my entire evening. The only reason I haven't hung up on you yet is that there's nobody else here waiting to speak to us. And so I figure I might give Phil one last chance to swat you around like a chew toy if Phil thinks there's some other point to make.
Well-
Otherwise, you are on my shit list forever for saying that the counter to the problem of tariffs that we made up is for you to make up something that costs more. Phil, what would you like to do?
I want to try to be as charitable as possible because I
Cool.
think Chuck was not expressing himself. Again, I'm going to strongman his argument. I'm hoping what he got tripped up on is my example where the $100 barrel went to 125 and then through the chain of distribution to 150 as an example. But let me back it up one step. If the importer has to pay 100 and then the 25% tariff, that importer wouldn't import oil at all. And maybe someone, a refinery, for example, might buy a $110 barrel of oil from a US company that was previously too expensive to produce, but is now cheaper than the Canadian oil. And so there would be incentives for companies in America to drill more expensive oil than they were before to send it to refineries. Assuming that was the best way I could spin your argument or your concept or your education. The problem with that is that works only if the tariffs are, as I described earlier in the show, well thought out, detailed, organized, and not just a big bat that we're going to smack Canadians with. If Congress says we're going to have 5% and then a 10% and then a 20% and then a 30% tariff on Canadian oil on this time schedule over 5 or 10 or 20 years, then American companies could ramp up and start producing oil at a price above 100, but below the 125 that net price coming from Canada. There is merit to that argument, Chuck. If that's the argument you're making, there's merit to it. However, with the way Trump does it, I dismiss that argument as a logical fallacy because it doesn't ever fucking happen. The example I will give you, 8 years ago when Trump came in the first time, he made steel and aluminum tariffs just like he did this time. But for an American company to set up and start up a new foundry to process iron ore and to mix it with other metals and set up the refinery and set up the facility could literally cost trillions of dollars. And no company in their right mind would even start the design specifications of such a facility in the United States if they thought for a moment that the tariffs weren't going to stay in place for decades. So I am not going to start spending $3 trillion on a metal fabrication facility if there's a possibility that Trump is going to change his mind in 3 days or 5 days or a month. And he's already shown that's exactly what he does. He uses tariffs as a weapon, as a negotiating tool, as a way to put other countries in their place. and they might have to back down or at least give him what he thinks that they think that he wants. But as soon as they do, the tariff's not going to work. If they don't agree to what Trump wants, no company in the United States of America is going to spend the kind of money you're talking about to start drilling new wells to bring out more expensive oil, because in a week, Trump is going to change his mind. So theoretically, there might be merit to the strongman version of the argument that I think maybe you were trying to make. But in reality, in all practicality, it won't work. It can't work because Trump is Trump, and Trump is going to do whatever the fuck he wants. And so he has most of his believers, his followers, convinced that the foreign countries pay tariffs. So if I can't get past that, this nuanced argument that you're trying to make, again, giving you the best scenario I think I can make for you, it's just not going to work. And of course, on top of that, you've got to remember there's the possibility that these other countries aren't going to be happy, and tariffs often lead to tariff wars. And so Canada adds tariffs to stuff they buy from us so that their wheat appears cheaper than wheat grown in Iowa. And now Iowa farmers go out of fucking business because Canadians buy Canadian wheat. And it's a messy, sloppy, painful process. Everyone gets fucked. And even in the theoretical case where someone can now create $110 or $115 barrel of oil in the United States, which is cheaper than $125, the price of oil is still more expensive than the $100 it used to be coming from Canada, which means every single consumer still gets fucked, even if it did work in the fantasy world that you want to present. And so the average American who put Trump in office with the idea that he was going to lower costs or even just lower inflation. To lower costs, you don't lower inflation, you have to have deflation. The idea that Trump is going to do that by using tariffs is bizarro world thinking. It is worse than thinking a man was put up on a cross and a day and a half later rose as a god. It's absurd and beyond understanding. It's clear that Trump does not understand how economics works, how pricing works, how countries work, how to negotiate with countries. It's just a non-starter on so many levels. I don't know if you want more of my rant, Matt. I'm sorry.
No, that was very good. Thank you, Phil. I'm glad you understood what I was talking about. The reason I used 150, I was trying to be fair because I know American prices are very high, but you used 110. So I'm glad you did, but that was exactly where I was going with that.
Excellent. Well, I thank you for calling and
no,
take a
hold
call.
on. I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
I'm not done, please.
Give it a go, Chuck. We'll see if you're done.
Okay. So another thing I was trying to get across was Trump supporters, at least I am, and I'm very aware. I think Trump and even Elon said this, that initially when this tariffs go through, like prices are going to be high. Like there's going to be a period of adjustment with this, that things are going to be bad before they get better. And I understand that. And every Trump supporter I know understands that as well.
You do, Chuck. I don't think you do. And I really had an impression for a moment that you listened to everything I said and you even understood it. But now you just demonstrated that you did not, because it's never going to work that way. Prices are going to go up. Things are not going to get better. The average American is going to pay more for every fucking thing under Trump. They're going to pay more than the highest amount that they bitched about under Biden. It's going to be worse under Trump, and it's not going to get better because Trump won't leave it alone.
I understand what you're saying, Phil, but can I give you my reason why I think Trump is actually leaning towards doing this tariff in a reasonable way than what you are thinking he's going to do?
Well, I don't know that I do, Chuck, because
that's something. Can I give you my reason why I think that?
Well, no, because all of the
we don't care why you think that.
Yeah, it's not a theoretical discussion anymore, Chuck. He wanted to.
He hasn't done it yet.
Colombia.
What do you mean he hasn't done it yet? He imposed tariffs already
on Colombia because they wouldn't let a plane land. They let the plane land. He took off the 25% tariff. He put a 25% flat tariff on Canada. Canada did something that he liked. He took the 25% tariff off before it even happened. He put a 25% tariff on Mexico for every fucking item that was going to come from Mexico. And Mexico agreed to do something that Trump could now go out and promote and tell his loyal devotees and followers like he's a fucking deity, that he got what he wanted, he negotiated for, and the 25% tariff came off. Every fucking tariff that Trump has put, with a few rare exceptions, has gone away within days. So if you think anyone is going to go start drilling for oil that's going to cost them $110 to sell in the United States because Canadian oil might be $125, first of all, it's not going to happen. The second thing is oil prices are controlled globally. It's a global trade. It's a commodity. And
that was a hypothetical.
I know, but any hypothetical is going to have different problems and hypothetical problems. But given Trump's behavior and his pattern, we're not talking about what he could do. I'm talking about what he does do.
You are talking about what he could do.
No, we're talking about what he has done. Yeah. You're talking about what you suspect. What'd you say?
I'm now done with Chuck. I tried.
See,
I thought he got it.
I'm glad you're done with Chuck.
Yeah. Matt,
Chuck, shut up, Chuck. No, Chuck, you don't get to speak anymore in my presence. I'm gonna give you a lecture, and then I'm gonna move on. The reality here is that you are speculating about what you think Trump means, or what Trump's intent is, or what may happen, and you want to give us your reasons for what you think may happen. That's okay. You can hang up. You're perfectly within your rights to run the fuck away when you've been schooled for the umpteenth time. You're somebody who doesn't even understand pronouns, and you're going to call in and lecture us, Phil, who's an investment expert, on tariffs. Not because we're wrong about them.
Yeah,
we're right about the tariffs, but you just think they're going to work out, and you just think this. I don't care what you think. I don't respect what you think. I don't have any reason to care or respect what you think about it. Man, if I wanted to know, I would call your show, but I don't. And you don't have a show for me to call, which is why I'm not calling you. You're calling us.
And if nothing else, I had to make his arguments for him. Right. I had to restate it, rephrase it, twist it and spindle it so that it made at least a little bit of sense. And he gave me the impression that he understood everything that I said, and then he didn't. So I don't know. You can't unbrainwash people in 5 minutes. It just doesn't work that way.
So I'm expecting this to be the absolute best call of the night. Taki is calling from Canada, pronouns are them. Taki says that Elon Musk is going to save the country by systematically dismantling woke ideology. Taki, I think we need to start by you telling me, what is woke ideology?
In which country? Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Exactly what I predicted. Taki, are you still there? I know that our producer muted you. I mean, I've got a sad trombone I can play too. And mine's bigger than yours. Yeah. See, I thought, I genuinely called this before we went live. And I told the producer, there's no way that Taki, with a them pronoun from Canada, calling to say that Elon Musk is going to save the country by systematically dismantling woke ideology. There's absolutely zero chance that this is anything other than a prank caller. And she was expecting fart sounds. We were not expecting the sad trombone. Oh. So, cool. Here,
variety.
There's the round of applause that you really think that you want. It's almost spooky how I predicted that you weren't going to be a real caller. And now it's time for us to say goodnight, Gracie. So, goodnight, Gracie. When we know before we ever push play, you're not for real. You guys keep failing. So, all right, we got some callers from atheist callers calling in tonight. Bill is from Texas. Pronouns are he, him. Says, will posit a God that exists make all religions true? I'm confused. Bill, what's going on? How are you?
Hi, Matt. Hi, Phil. Good to talk to you guys. This is my first time getting through. I've been watching you guys on YouTube for a long time.
Well, I'm sorry, or you're welcome, whichever one you feel applies.
An idea that I've been kicking around in my brain the past, I don't know, a couple weeks maybe, was that the only God that I think that could exist and would render all religions true is a trickster God. And one that is, it is not triomny at all, though it may be omnipotent in our eyes, to us as ants, as bugs, because it did put the universe into motion. But I think that it's not necessarily malicious or evil, but is indifferent to its creation, and especially us. Now, the possibility of it making all religions true is this God appeared at some point early on in human development and said, "Hey, here I am. I am Yahweh. I'm Shiva. I had sex with a teenager, and here's my son." And but he doesn't really do the things that he says he does. Anyway, that's kind of just the germ of this idea.
I'm completely confused.
I think I got this one. I think I got this. In the sense that all religions are true, it would be trivial that there would be a piece of it, each religion that is true, the claim that there is a deity.
Yes.
Beyond that, it's all meaningless and it's trite. It would be more likely in my mind that the Goa'uld are real from Stargate, and that they are the reason for the legends of all the gods. That's more practical, I think, than what you're suggesting. And if I can, Bill, I want to share, and I think it's an analogy. It's a way of thinking about it, because you mentioned ants. I have an ant story for you, if I can share it with you. Imagine you're out walking on the sidewalk, I don't know, in front of your house or in your town or whatever, and you see a pile of sand or dirt where ants have been digging underground. And at one point in time, you stop and admire the ants, and the ants look up at you and think that you are a deity because you are so significantly advanced that they then way down deep in the bowels of their ant kingdom, they grab an ant to sacrifice and bring it up to you and ask you to pull out your magnifying glass and burn it, because I, as the god, love the smell of the burning flesh of an ant. Now, in this scenario, you can calculate the difference in mental ability between an ant and a human. You could calculate the volume, you could calculate the height difference, you could calculate the mass difference. There's some kind of measurable difference. But I'm telling you, Bill, unless you've got some kind of weird view on the world, you are not really going to give a care what the ants are doing on your behalf. But then when you elevate it to a deity, especially one that can create the entire universe, its scale compared to us is essentially immeasurable, infinitely bigger than the scale between an ant and a human. And I don't care what an ant does. If you have an entity that has that kind of power, that kind of control, that kind of ability to then think that they're going to care what a couple of billion humanoids are going to do on one planet around one star in one galaxy is going to do, is farcical to me. So I dismiss your clever idea.
No, I dismiss it as well. But it is.
I'm glad
it seems to me that it seems to me that is the only possibility. And in different.
I I think if you want to posit it as a theoretical possibility,
sure.
Okay, it's a fun thought experiment, but I do suggest that you go learn about the Goa'uld in Stargate.
No, believe me, I'm quite familiar, and in fact,
I think
kind
that's
of
more plausible.
My favorite Futurama.
Yeah,
my favorite Futurama episode is when Bender, he's launched out into deep space and a meteorite hits him, and then a small colony of mini people start worshiping him as a god. And it's possibly the best.
It reminds me of the line, I think it's from Star Trek 3. What does God need a spaceship for?
Oh, right. Well, God does need money.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
okay,
Bill,
we got to move. We got to move on.
About God.
We've got to move on. Fellas. We went from a completely useless speculative God, which I'm not convinced is the only available options. You should look at a non-interventionist God that just wants things to happen but doesn't care what happens. So you don't have to have a trickster God. You can just have something that doesn't care. But now we've gone so far afield that I got to rein it back in. We got a couple other calls on the line, but thanks for the speculation, Bill.
All right. Thanks, fellas. Have a good night.
Thanks.
We will try.
We'll try
and
try again.
And we're going to get some weird questions. And I think several of these may end up going the same. So Michael's an atheist calling from New York to ask if Christian nationalists believe more in Christianity or nationalism. And my answer is you need to ask Christian nationalists.
Or I could be cheeky and say no.
Well, I'm looking at, maybe it's a fool's errand to try to ascribe any motive to this, but it doesn't look like someone who's trying to represent the values of Christianity. Is it all a farce that we're supposed to buy? I mean, I didn't know if
which
maybe
values
had any
of Christianity.
Well,
Christianity
okay,
Christianity can be so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah, it's a label that you apply to make yourself feel like you fit in with 80% of the population. But if you've gone to different churches, I know Matt has, I know I have over the years, just out of personal amusement, curiosity, I'm fascinated by how can anyone actually believe the stuff that they claim to believe. And so if you look at different sects of Christianity, they can't even mesh together. If Calvinism is true, Catholicism is false. If Catholicism is true, evangelicalism under Martin Luther is false. If Missouri Synod Lutherans are correct, then evangelical Lutherans are wrong. It never ends. But when they come together and want to have some kind of power for a moment, they'll unite. But if you start by saying, what do Christians think about subject X? You're probably lending yourself down a road that you're not going to succeed in whatever it is you wanted to do. You have to talk to an individual Christian, ask them what they think, and then address their personal views, which will then change like the sifting sands of what is that stuff you step in and you get stuck? Quicksand. It's going to change like quicksand because they'll realize they're losing an argument and they start changing what they report to you that they believe. So, but to start from the idea of what does a Christian nationalist think, I think is fallacious. I think I understand maybe where you're coming from or what you're trying to understand.
I should have been more clear. I'm thinking specifically about the political movement, Project 2025, and those people. Are they actually trying to make everybody Christian because they really think that's the way it should be, or is it just a veil so they can have power and greed and money?
I think it's going to be a mixed bag. There are people that actually believe it, but then there's other people that know that it's bullshit, but they're using it for power. I mean, every time Trump goes out, he's probably the most atheistic president we've had in 100 fucking years. But he goes out there and says that he's a Christian because he's manipulating the masses to do what he wants. And this has happened with Hitler making his very first treaty was with the Catholic Church. The church that was created under Russian control so that you had a unified church and a unified political body. There's a long track record of a religion and a dictator joining together to maintain, share control. Great example, Game of Thrones.
But
they team up with the religion.
when it comes to Christian nationalists, though, Christianity is the primary. They don't give a fuck what nation they're trying to turn into a Christian nation. They're going to turn it into a Christian nation. They just don't always agree on what a Christian nation looks like. But it is God first, but they all have a different view of God. It is what God wants first, but they all have a different view of what God wants. So,
and what's weird,
make no mistake, these are not people who are in any way respectful of the Constitution and trying to make Christianity fit the Constitution. They are trying to dismantle everything about the Constitution that doesn't agree with Christianity.
And the vast majority of Christians disagree with the vast majority of other Christians, but they don't know it because they grew up and live in their little bubble, and they go to the little church, and the 2 or 3 or 400 people that go to the church in their small town or in a big city all allegedly believe the same thing because they're going to the same church. They're getting the same sermon. They're getting the same service every Sunday. But if you sit them down, even the same people in the same building, and ask them what they really believe, they disagree on almost everything. It's absolutely stupefying how happily they go along and think we all believe in Christianity. It's the same one thing for all of us. And really one of the reasons religion died off a lot faster in Europe is because it got so intertwined with the governments that there was a single dominant religion, and everyone else that didn't follow that religion fought against it. In the United States, it's a la carte. You can have any kind of religion you want because there's not a state-sponsored religion. Well, now maybe there is. And now maybe there is, and everyone who thought they were a Christian will say, I'm not that type of Christian, and they want to get rid of it. But who knows?
Sure. Yeah. I agree with all of that. I guess I think the thing that I'm struggling with, and of course, you have no way of knowing any better than anyone else does, but something like Trump's going to make the office of, faith and protect Christianity from being, discriminated against. Like, I don't think he actually gives a shit about that at all. I don't think he cares about Christianity.
To power and money and wealth and glory and fame. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
He's like, some kind of mythical god that only has power as long as he's believed in. It's like Tinkerbell. He's like Tinkerbell. As long as we all praise him and clap when he's around, does he actually exist? In his own mind, it's all about the adoration.
Well, I said this to my partner recently. It from an outside perspective, it seems like people waking up in the morning and saying, like, literally, what's make a list of all the evil shit we can do to just be cruel today, and let's go down that. Like, that's the way it feels to me. So I don't know if that's rooted in.
Put it in a book.
Sure. So yeah, I guess is right. So it seems like your read, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that is actually rooted in a legitimate attempt to adhere to their idea of Christianity. It's not just a complete farce.
There are people who believe it, but there's a lot of people that use it as a tool to power, as they always do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Humans suck.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference what their motivations are, what their most sincere motivations are. All that matters is what they're actually fucking doing.
Yeah, no argument there. I guess the way my brain works, I try to understand somebody's motivation as a way to kind of decode what's happening and understand the mechanism, as it were. But that's a completely valid point. I agree.
Go take a vacation in a Bible Belt city and go to like 10 different churches over a couple of months.
You could spend the rest of your life talking to all of them and doing a scatter plot to find out what we already know. Some of them are more sincere about the Christianity. Some of them are more sincere about the power. They're willing to work together to the detriment of others. That's where the focus needs to be.
Yep.
For sure.
Thanks,
all right.
Michael.
Well, I appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thank you for the perspective.
Thanks, Michael. Take care. We have we got a theist calling, although I don't know that Jasmine's calling in to defend theism at all. But Jasmine, pronouns to she, her from Canada, has a question about Christianity and the U.S. government. So welcome, Jasmine. How are you?
Good, thank you. The question, like, I see a lot of faith and freedom, establishing a new religious office. And the question is, if Trump sort of solidifies at least Christian values into your government, do you guys sort of foresee the Christianity just being pushed in, and then you'll just end up with Trump or somebody like Trump for the foreseeable future?
Yes,
that's
the
possible.
whole point
Yeah.
of Project 2025. That's what they're actually actively doing.
And Trump himself said, Christians, just vote for me this one more time because we're going to fix everything and you're never going to have to be bothered with voting again.
To be fair, he was talking to a specific group of Christians that don't vote typically, that they wouldn't have to get in. That wasn't necessarily saying nobody's going to vote.
Yeah, fair enough. So you moving down, Desmond?
You guys got a lot of problems right now, and I don't know how you're going to solve them. Parents ain't one of them.
Yeah,
but
I'm contemplating my options. Canada's awful cold because I live in Florida, but I've toyed with ideas of going to Italy or Spain or Portugal. I don't know Portuguese though. Maybe I can learn that after Spanish, but who knows?
Well, they say our news is reporting a lot of LGBTQ people trying to apply to move up here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm assuming directly because of Trump.
Yeah. It's a weird thing because those kind of rights, like in Chicago, because I lived in Chicago for a long time, it's not really a big deal, but in Orlando, it's a big fucking deal. Because in Orlando, a big city in Florida, in case you didn't know, these people are literally fighting for their lives. That's not hyperbole. It is real. They have been shot down. They have been killed. And so it's not just a theoretical, we want more rights or we want equal rights kind of thing. Sometimes it comes down to, we just don't want to be fucking killed. So that changes the motivation for the people in Florida, in Orlando. And Orlando is fantastic, but you go 15, 20 miles outside of Orlando and it could be like being in the country in Arkansas. So, who knows? All right,
So
Matt,
as it stands right now, though, the core thing to understand right now is that what they're trying to do from a Christian nationalist perspective is in violation of the United States Constitution and the legal precedent and legal scholarship that supports church-state separation. The problem is that we have a Supreme Court that's decided, we're going to make king. We're not going to care about precedent. We're going to ignore this. We're going to ignore that. So the question about what can and can't happen legally is nobody knows. Nobody can tell you, in the same way that we currently have Elon Musk, who nobody elected, who has not been approved by Congress, who doesn't have any security clearance that any of the rest of us are aware of, and his team of people we don't know now have access to all of our personal information, or a good chunk of our personal information that is protected by law. There's a great video that just went up from Legal Eagle earlier today about which laws Elon Musk and Doge have potentially violated. And that's just one aspect of this. Set Elon Musk aside and look at what Trump is doing with regard to birthright citizenship, with regard to no Christian or no anti-Christian sentiments being expressed, and these various things. If there's nobody who can stand up and nobody who will stand up, then the law doesn't matter.
Correct.
And we are essentially heading towards a revolution and a civil war.
Oh.
So do you have extra room in your house?
Believe
Jasmine?
it. Sorry?
Do you have extra rooms in your house?
Yeah, some.
Okay.
Yeah, for all of us to come stay with you, unless you're
Yeah.
going to become the 51st state.
They're not likely. We're trying to move away from the U.S. There's trade agreements going on with China, with Japan, with the EU. It's pretty much united across our parties that we don't wish anything to do with the U.S.
That
So
actually ties
the
back to my
question is how
conjecture
fast we can move away from.
Yeah. And these are side effects of Trump's playing fucking games with on again, off again tariffs. People in other countries will feel threatened and try to relieve the threat by not doing business with the United States. That's
that's got to be worldwide. You're going isolationist big time.
Yeah, and other countries are saying, if you want to be isolated, we'll fucking isolate you, and we just won't buy your shit. We'll get cornflakes made in Canada. We'll buy wheat made in Canada. We'll get milk from here. Orange. I don't know if you were listening earlier, but Canada announced that they're now going to get all their oranges and orange juice from Venezuela instead of Florida.
Yeah.
And so Florida just got cut out. And that's going to happen over and over and over again. And it takes some doing to piss off Canadians. They're just the nicest fucking people, but Trump's managed it.
Well, all I can tell you was that we're trying to strike trade deals with the EU, with China, with Japan. They're just trying to move away as quickly as they can from the U.S. government to more stable trade partners.
I can't blame you.
And China, I think, is actively going to target your economy too, and they're a big economy. I don't know what they can do against you.
Well, I've seen MAGA friends, air quotes, MAGA friends that were screaming and crying about eggs, because Matt talked about that at the beginning, and now they're coming out and saying, I don't care if eggs cost $10 or $12 a dozen, because I love everything that Trump is doing. And now Trump is starting to prep everybody, saying, just like the caller we had, Matt, everything is going to be better, but there's going to be pain. And so now he's set up the scenario where all these suckers are going to see pain as a validation for Trump fixing everything. And for the liberals out there, I love you. But if you think the average MAGA person is now turning away from Trump, you're out of your fucking minds. They're not.
I don't need the richest person on the planet telling me that what he's doing, which no plan has been presented to anybody, nothing has been approved by anybody. He's not a citizen. He's not elected. He doesn't have security. Nobody knows anything about this. And I don't need the richest man in the world doing this and then saying, yeah, things are going to get a little tougher for you for a while. Fuck you.
Did you hear about Gaza condoms?
Yeah, I don't need. Sorry, what?
Did you hear about the Gaza condoms?
Yes.
For the listeners who don't know, USA Aid, Elon had come out and said that the United States is spending millions of dollars sending condoms to Gaza, which then got conflated. Somehow they're using these magic condoms to make bombs. And someone corrected Elon and or Trump or whatever and said, Gaza is actually a city in Africa, and we're trying to help people there practice safe sex so that they don't spread illness and disease. And Elon came out and said, yeah, some of the things I say are going to be not true. And you're like, what? Well, double check, motherfucker. Fact check yourself. Don't just say shit and see what sticks. But that's the approach. They're going through with a machete or a sledgehammer and just breaking shit. Like someone told me, we're going through US aid line by line looking for criminal activity and everything. And I said, no, you're not. And when you destroy an entire organization, there is no line by line left to look through. That's not what they're doing. They're just saying US money going to other people that might be brown or black. We got to stop it. And we're just going to cut it off at the knees. And now they're finding out that a lot of the money from U.S. aid went to American farmers in Illinois, in Indiana, and Iowa, and Kansas who were growing corn and soybeans and wheat that U.S. aid was buying with government money to ship to other parts of the country. And if that money gets cut off, those farmers are going to go bankrupt. We could have the largest foreclosures of American farms we've seen in a generation, all thanks to Trump. And they're going to sell it as this is the pain before the cure.
Oh, yes.
So,
Your agricultural sector's got to be hit very, very hard with Trump in power.
so Jasmine, I appreciate the call, but I don't think we have a lot more to add on that one. I've got to get moving.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jasmine.
thank you.
Take care.
Canadians are
I'm
the
gonna-
nicest people, Matt. It's just
This one may go rather poorly. Evo's calling from California.
woohoo.
Evo, it says here that you say religion's a phenotype that's been selected for, but okay, I'm going to mute you, and I'm going to trust for a half a second that you're not just getting ready to troll, even though the argument as stated here is horribly broken and irrelevant. But so you say atheists are not natural. So you say religion is a phenotype that's been selected for by evolution, which means atheists are not natural, and therefore theism will win. Let me start by pointing out that theism is not necessarily a phenotype selected for by evolution, and evolution may not be selecting for anything as much as it's selecting against things that are necessarily prohibitive. But to suggest atheists aren't natural because atheism hasn't been selected for by natural selection is a horrible mistake, because atheism has in fact been selected for in the same sense that theism has been selected for, which is why we're both here. However, whether it was selected for or not selected against is a separate issue, and to argue that something isn't viable because it's not natural is the naturalistic fallacy. And when you then conclude that theism will win, Evo, here's my question. I don't care if you think theism will win. I think you're wrong. My only concern is theism true? Can you demonstrate that theism is true? Yeah, that's what I thought.
It was cute, at least. And it gave you a nice platform to explain why the question is moronic, but worthless, without value.
See, I'm doing that because this is someone that would have occupied a lot of time and gotten nowhere as we danced around in circles. So I appreciate the fact that they are straight up right off the bat saying, yep, I'm not serious. I just called in with something that I thought was curiosity, and I'm not bright enough to actually discuss. So I wanted to make sure you did. And so for that, thank you. It was nice to be able to address all the potential problems with an argument towards evolution selecting for theism. That's,
you know what I'm most oppressed by tonight, Matt?
What's that?
The background matches my glasses. I think that's fucking cool.
It's blue. Abadi abada. All right, final caller from today. Daximus is calling from Trinidad and Tobago. If Jesus is anti-capitalist but also encourages capitalism, and Yahweh does the same, and Christian nationalism is rampant in the U.S., then are they then contradicting each other while being hypocritical, or am I... Daximus, what's going on? Because I don't understand what you're asking and why you're asking me.
I would say you're right.
Okay, so the idea I have in my head, right, is, well, the Christians use the Bible as their reference for their beliefs, right? So, in these texts, well, we know that the text not necessarily univocal, like, because it's put together by man and they claim it's like divine, but the Yahweh and Jesus contradict each other on capitalist values, while Jesus himself also contradicts himself in other passages, and Yahweh also does the same thing. But it also has, but it has a strong, well, I wouldn't really say strong, but this is where I'm confused, right? It may or may not have a strong argument for how the Christian God supports the U.S. politics.
I think there are Christians that think God and the Bible support capitalism, but there's a lot of other Christians that read the same book that come up with the opposite conclusion, because there's a lot of lines where Jesus says, forget your family, sell your clothes and buy a sword. I mean, if you don't have the money to buy a sword, sell your clothes and buy a sword. They're there for a religious war for salvation. It doesn't have anything to do with capitalism. And you can talk about, however one treats the least of us, kind of concept. That's not capitalism. Capitalism is fucking dog eat dog, and I make more money than you, and I win the fucking game. And the phrase that I like is unregulated capitalism leads to monopoly. And we've had those in the past: telephone companies, railroad companies, oil companies. And from time to time, the mood changes in the country. We break that shit up. Right now, maybe we have more monopolies with Google, Facebook, Amazon. It's so easy. And they integrate in what's called a vertical monopoly, and they buy the warehouses. They now buy the trucks. They pay for the deliveries. They pay for the warehousing. And now they've been buying up companies, and they slap the Amazon brand on it. Who knows how much property they've bought to actually control metal and ores and supplies. And they can go from the ground all the way to your house with a product, and they're involved in every piece of it. And that shit's got to get busted up. We just can't have competition when one company controls that much of the world. Which got
sorry if I interrupted. So that's very interesting, right? And how you brought up monopoly, right? Like in Genesis 41, I believe Yahweh did bless Joseph for storing grain to sell, right? Like stockpiling it to sell during famine, right? And he got rewarded by God, right? But at the same time, now, God did punish the Israelites in Exodus for stockpiling manna. Well, which is I'm
confused.
Funny food, right?
I'm confused. I'm confused. Why do we give a fuck? Why do we spend any time at all talking about what the God of the Bible did or didn't do or think?
It's a story.
Well, the topic of the thing was, does God approve of U.S. politics, right? And
okay, that is something that is a title that we put on the show to prompt discussion. I don't need atheists to call in and speculate or talk about whether or not a Christian view is hypocritical. You got to take that up with the Christians.
But I think they're hypocritical. How's that? I think they're hypocritical. You have a point, and thank you for calling.
Wait. So the key question really is, right? Can a nation be Christian and capitalist without compromising their view of
I don't care. I don't care. I only care about whether something is true, whether or not it's right. I don't care whether or not capitalism and some version of Christianity can coexist. Of course it fucking can. Some version of Christianity and some version of capitalism have coexisted alongside of each other for the entirety of one of the two existences. So I don't care to spend any fucking time going, is there a version of Christianity that is compatible with capitalism? I don't give a fuck. If Christianity is not true, it should go. Why are you talking? If Christianity is not true, it should go the fuck away. That's all I care about. And if capitalism is awful, it should go the fuck away. You might as well have called in to ask whether or not Batman would be better for the economy than Superman. I do not give a fuck.
It's Superman, by the way.
So it's all up to interpretation, and regardless of what anyone thinks, because the Bible is not inerrant, it's just invalid from the get-go.
I don't know how you got any of that from what I just said. This is one of the most frustrating things in the history of doing this for 20 some odd years, that I can do nothing more than say, I don't give a shit. All I care about whether or not it's true. And that you can then extrapolate things that I never claimed.
No, I'm asking.
He doesn't care. Doesn't matter.
You extrapolated by making claims about things that I never said. I never mentioned the word inerrant. And the word inerrant is completely irrelevant to anything that I said. So when you try to sum up what I've said afterwards by talking about because the Bible isn't inerrant, when that had absolutely nothing to do with anything I said, do you understand why that would just be frustrating?
Well, you made the claim that because you can't prove anything like is from this made-up being, then it is not inerrant, and therefore it's up for interpretation. We can validate the whole thing.
Christ. You didn't even listen to me when I was asking for your. Never mind. Goodbye.
Time to wrap that one up.
How can I describe what the problem is and ask if you understand it, and you immediately just go right back to whether or not the Bible is fucking inerrant?
Because he cannot comprehend your perspective. He cannot comprehend that you possibly doubt that there is a God, and that for him,
he's an atheist. No, he's an atheist, Bill.
Well, then I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I'm trying to help somebody out, and it didn't work.
This is entirely frustrating. All right, so we have super chats. We're going to read all the super chats over $10. Yeah. My apologies. I'd love to actually understand some stuff, but it's like I probably we should have potentially been a little more strict about some of the open line stuff, because I get it. There's a question there and everybody has thoughts, but this isn't the call to share your thoughts of agreement with us or your frustration with the biblical confusion, or whether or not, if we were having a discussion about whether or not it's inerrant or not, we would want somebody to call in who thinks it is inerrant, not people who agree with me that it's not inerrant.
It's kind of like in a very different angle, because I do a lot more about investments and economics. When I talk to people, when they ask me questions, sometimes it's like there's so much that you don't understand about how the system works that I don't even know where to start to answer your question, because your question doesn't make sense. You don't even know that it doesn't make sense because you just don't know enough to know about it. I don't know. Sometimes that comes up for me. It's kind of similar. Maybe
I feel like I'm an alien right now, and that I'm the only one that speaks the language that I speak, which is really wild. But $10 from Greg Murkowski. Unexpectedly got to meet Sonia Sotomayor last weekend. I'd be interested to hear more about how that went and what led to it. But thanks, Greg. Well, not today.
Not today. Am I supposed to do the next one? Is that what you're waiting?
Yeah, sure. We'll alternate.
$10 from Tall Girl 195. Elon claiming Social Security fraud, 150-year-old recipients, and the 2020 election fraud. What would constitute evidence in support of these claims? Thanks so much for everything. Hang in there. Evidence would be fucking nice. Just like the whole 2020 election fraud. There was something like 47 lawsuits, and 46 of them were thrown out right away. I don't know what the correct legal term is, but they were just complete bullshit. And the one was partially true on some technical detail, but that's a lot of evidence saying it didn't happen. It didn't happen. There's no evidence that it happened. There's evidence that it didn't happen. 150-year-old recipient. Yeah. Just show us the evidence.
But even if there is, even if there's 12 150-year-old recipients of Social Security as evidence of fraud, they shut down the department that is there to find fraud, waste, and abuse. They shut down the inspectors general, and we have Elon saying, "Oh, look, I found this." But what is that? Is that maybe $150,000 out of trillions?
Because if we want to apply this logic that an organization that engages in fraud or money laundering or the rape of one child should be shut down, I can think of an organization I'd start with first. It's not Social Security.
Oh, I've been corrected. Evidently, Elon Musk is a citizen. I had no idea.
I didn't either. When did he become a citizen? Not for
I
the
don't
topic
care.
of the show, but- All right, hit the next one.
Evidently, I was incorrect. Being religious and being MAGA go hand in hand. It's all about believing what you want to believe. I don't believe that at all. With zero justifications or requires you to dismiss reality. I don't think belief is a dogmatic choice. I don't think anybody believes what they want to believe. I think they rationalize on behalf of their desires, and they'll make claims about what they believe based on what they desire. But I don't think beliefs are...
I think this goes to the arguments aren't good, they're good enough. But if you, because we're all in these bubbles, and that's why I've kept a few MAGA people around on social media. But you can craft your social media platform so that you have hundreds or thousands of friends that agree with you on everything about Trump. Trump is right, and there's fraud, and I see the fraud. I've heard about the fraud. They repeat the fraud just over and over and over, and I get to do another one here, $10 from Tall Girl 195, maybe to clarify the reason behind my question. It's like when theists ask what evidence would convince you, and because you don't provide anything, they consider you to actually be closed-minded.
That's our problem.
Well, and it's funny because that ties right into what I was just talking about MAGA. They have bullshit answers, and they come to you like I mentioned earlier, maybe it was pre-show, someone on my Facebook wall says, "Phil, you don't know anything about how tariffs work." And I said, "Okay, let's pretend that I don't know anything. Explain it to me." And they got nothing. Religion is like that. It's not my job to explain away what you've made up. You have to support what you've made up. And in the Trump world, they need to support what has been made up for them. They think that they are doing that. They think that they are being rational and reasonable people because they're starting from a position and they believe something and they just grab ideas to support it. And the arguments don't have to be good. They have to be good enough. And they are for many people.
If they consider you to be closed-minded because you have standards of evidence that their claims don't fit underneath, then that's what you need to educate them about and disabuse them of that notion. But if they won't listen, they're like the people who are like, "Well, I think it's magic fairies, and if you don't have a better explanation, you're just closed-minded."
Yeah. Or when people say, if you can't demonstrate where life came from, then it has to be God. No, that's not how that works. You have to give me evidence, and there is none. That's why I'm an atheist.
All right. $15 from Marty 182. For anyone interested, the Center for Progressive Reform has a Project 2025 action tracker, easy to find online. Keep up the good work, Matt. Thank you, Marty. Hopefully, maybe somebody can put a link to that somewhere.
$10 from Bobtailed Trucker. Nearly all Tesla cyber junk trucks are rotting in dealerships with no buyers. I'm not comfortable with nearly all, because something like 40,000 have been bought just in the United States alone. But their production was in far excess of what they were able to sell. And they were producing with the idea that there was some portion of 2 million people that wanted to buy them, even if they thought only 10% of those purchases would come to fruition. That'd be 200,000. And they were producing on that kind of scale. And it turned out to be 40,000. And then socially conscious people made it embarrassing to own a fucking Cybertruck, and it scared off a lot of people. And then, of course, Elon became Elon. And I was talking to a friend of mine who is a Tesla Elon fanboy. I love you, by the way, if he's listening. But he talks about, I was trying to explain to him, in Europe, they are not having a fucking debate about whether Elon did a Sieg Heil Nazi salute. They're not having that fucking debate. We're having that debate here. It's a shitty debate. It's clearly a fucking Nazi salute. In Europe, in January, in most European countries, Tesla sales have plummeted 40 to 60% because nobody, well, I guess half the people, don't want to be in a Tesla vehicle of any kind because the vehicles are getting attacked, they're getting spray painted, they're having blood thrown on them, they're getting swastikas painted on them because the Nazism is real and they're not going to stand for it. And if Elon stands for Nazism and promotes it, they're not going to buy his vehicles. You don't even need to put a tariff on them. They're just not going to fucking buy them. And it's going to be a bloodbath for Tesla sales. Is this mine?
No, it's mine. $10 from John Hotzinger. Mary, tell your dogs I love them. Oh,
there you go.
Mary's dog getting some love.
$10 from Stina. I work for the feds and get about 10 emails a day about government buyout scam. It's a trick to get you to quit. Don't do it. Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that one. I wouldn't believe a fucking thing that was promised to me by Elon or Trump. If they say, hey, if you quit, I'm going to pay you for another 10 months. You're going to quit, and then they're not going to pay you. Easy.
$20 from Mr. Boricua. My job as a contract to powder coat a part for Tesla. I'm a part of that coding booth that's thousands of parts at a time, taking almost a full 21 hours for it all. Requires a primer, then a top coat, uses a shit ton of paint.
Yeah.
If only they would have painted the truck, it might have looked slightly less awful.
Have you seen where they put not a clear coat, a decal on it and then tried to remove it? Oops.
Yeah. Yep.
$9.99 from LA Silver Surfers.
Surfers. $20 from Heisenberg. Hey guys, thanks for the chat. Love from Mick. Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Mick.
$10
more. $10 from Moron. Moron. I get it. That's very clever. I got a new job circumcising elephants. Wow. Very nice. Should I read the rest of it? Did they get a free read when they give $10?
Oh, they paid it.
The hourly wage is low, but the tips are huge. Ta-da. I got a joke for you, Matt.
Go for it.
What's the difference between a green bean and a chickpea? Trump would never pay to see a green bean.
Oh, I was going to say I've never had a green bean on my face.
You got it. I think this one's you.
I saw somebody tell their grandma that joke. $10 from Jamnik. What do you call a herd of cows masturbating? Beef stroganoff. Dick joke,
classic.
not a poop joke. Classic. Moron started it. That's fair.
Yeah.
It's going to be dick joke and poop joke.
This is degrading. But the dollar amounts are getting bigger. Someone needs to kick in $69. I think or 666. What do you think of that? 50 from Keister 67. Awesome job. You should get bonuses for stress. I hope we are still the United States of America next year. You guys are one of the lines of defense and education, in my opinion. Thanks. Well, thank you very much.
Another $10 from Jamnik. I went out dressed as a chicken last night and met with a girl who was dressed like an egg. One thing led to another, and the lifelong question was answered. It was the chicken.
Good
job.
It's a cerebral dirty joke. 1999 from Brian Pooh. KC. because you challenged. Does that mean something to
Okay.
you? No? Okay.
It doesn't, but
Send us another
I'm-
$20 and explain it.
I like it anyway. Another $10 from Jamnik. An old man is at his bedside praying when his wife says, "What are you doing?" "I'm praying for guidance," replies the man. "Just pray for stiffness and I'll guide it in."
There you go.
It's dick joke night.
Best part of the show, maybe. $20 from Kickstar67. Now, Kickstar67 has some money. Right? Just keep sending it. No, what cut do I get of this, Matt? I forgot. Because Brian Pooh, KC member, answered the challenge and is awesome, dude. Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
But there's more jokes coming because Jamnik is taking this shit seriously. Thank you for the
Yeah.
incredible generosity and the jokes. It hurts me to tell this joke, but here goes. What do you call it? Cheap circumcision or ripoff?
Ouch.
Ooh, ouch.
Oh.
Bill,
got
will
more.
you be at Free Flow?
My answer earlier was, yes, motherfucker, I am Free Flow. No, I will be at Free Flow. And for those who don't know, if you don't mind the shameless plug, Matt, Free Flow is a conference in Central Florida in the Orlando. I think it's actually in Orlando, but the Orlando area. It is in the middle of March. You can Google probably Free Flow Orlando 2025, and you can get the details. Very affordable. Excellent lineup of speakers. And the Central Florida Free Thought community does a conference every other year. And the alternating years is a cruise. So if you can't make it here in March of 2025, you can go on our cruise in 26.
There's a little bit of a chance that you'll be hearing from either David Williamson or Jocelyn, who run that Free Thought group and are just awesome. They reached out to remind me about Free Flow this March. I'm not going to be there, but it is easily one of my favorite conventions anytime I've been, which is I've been there several times and would plan to go back sometime. So
I think you did a magic show a couple of years back.
I did. I've done all kinds of stuff. You never know what's going to happen. I sat around and played guitar all night one time.
Is this one mine or yours?
I think it's yours.
$10 from Jamnik06. A husband says to his wife, "I bet you can't tell me something that will make me both happy and sad at the same time." The wife thinks, then replies, "Your dick is bigger than your brother's." Oh, see, that's nice. I think there's a whole channel on Pornhub for that.
Should have just said, I already know.
Do you know Pornhub is strictly not prohibited, restricted, severely restricted in the state of Florida?
Yes, because it's also restricted here in the state of Texas.
And did you know there are other porn sites that you can go to?
There absolutely are.
Just a public service announcement for anyone who's interested.
$20 from the Benjamin Reynolds. The Network State by Balaji Srinivasan. Free PDF book online. Who is a friend of Peter Thiel, who helped pick J.D. Vance as vice president, is a scary playbook of what is transpiring by Doge on how to overthrow nation states like the USA. Yeah, I haven't looked into it, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot that is essentially a playbook of what's happening.
$10 from Space Barbarian. The Bible says a lot of things. Technically, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom. Reverend Lovejoy.
I don't get it, but I appreciate it. But it may just be me. I feel like my brain is in a different.
You're still in recovery mode?
Realm. I don't get it. I mean, genuinely, I would ask a very clear question and get an answer that was like I didn't say a word, and it's very frustrating.
It's like social media in person, personified. Because sometimes I'll ask someone a very simple question, and especially if they're a MAGA person or a religious person, I'll ask them a question that's yes or no, and because I have a point, I have a path that I want to go down to get to some better understanding. And they answer 3. I'm like, no, it was a yes or no question.
Yeah. Another $10 from Jamnik. 2 men broke into a drugstore and stole all the Viagra. The police put out an alert to be on the lookout for 2 hardened criminals. One died of a Viagra overdose. They couldn't close his casket.
$9.99 from Jeremy. You misunderstood my first one. I'm saying MAGA, like theists, base their beliefs on rejecting reality, not facts or logic.
And I'm saying that there may be theists that do base their beliefs on facts and logic, but are mistaken. They're not necessarily actively reacting. But
yeah, same thing with MAGA. Most people think that they're right. They think that they have facts and they think that they are logical. They're just wrong.
Yeah, what you see as rejecting reality, they see as you rejecting reality. And so the question then has to become, how do we tell who's closer to reality? And for some reason, we can't seem to get agreement on that very issue.
Correct.
But I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
And if we didn't understand, Jeremy, send more money. Maybe we should start misunderstanding all of these on purpose.
I've thought about doing that, but I'm not a greedy bastard and I have some ethics.
Uh-oh. That'll ruin it every time.
That's why I'm broke.
I think it's
$10 from Rufinus of Ack. This is my take on dictionary and philosophical arguments for God. You can show black as white by argument, but you'll never convince me. Philby in the Time Machine.
That goes with my semi-famous phrase that philosophical arguments for the existence of God are simply verbal masturbation.
I think it goes beyond that, but I understand the sentiment.
$10 from Ash Glitch. Been playing lots of Fallout lately to prepare myself for where we're headed. Yeah,
that's why I've been playing Path of Exile too.
$10
from John Hotzinger. Yeah, I can't enjoy that anymore. I used to love The Onion. I can't stand The Onion or anything like The Onion anymore because it's indistinguishable from reality. And so many people are so stupid that you can't make a fun joke like that anymore. There's going to be somebody who's going to take this hot dog joke as if it really happened. 2 hot dogs are in a pot of boiling water, and one hot dog says to the other, "Man, it's hot in here." And the other hot dog screams, "Oh my God, a talking hot dog worth every penny of my $10. You're welcome."
Woohoo. $10 from Secular Felinist.
Like cats.
I'm hoping not felons.
Some they got a cat as their avatar there.
Although it just goes into the police. So now I'm really confused. Some thieves broke into the police station and stole all the toilets. The cops got nothing to go on. Yeah. You know what I did, Matt? A couple weeks ago, I bought a bidet for my house.
About time.
One of the best investments I ever fucking made. I love that thing.
Yeah, no. I have them on every toilet in the house and have since the beginning of the pandemic. Which I'm sorry now I said that. I don't mean that. It was supposed to be a joke. But yes, back at the beginning of all that, I bought bidets. And now I don't ever want to go without one.
I know. I'm worried now when I travel. I don't know if you've sometimes in Italy, depending on where you are, they have standing toilets.
Yep.
If you've never experienced that, you were in the military, you probably went to one somewhere.
My back and legs aren't good enough to do that anymore.
Yeah, you if you're lucky, there's a grunt pipe where the plumbing comes into the porcelain on the floor.
Yes,
and you just got to stand there and do your thing. You don't linger there, man. You're in and out. Just got to go.
Those cops got nothing to go on too. Thank you so much. $10 from Michael Freeman. Matt, I just want to thank you for helping me become an atheist and a better critical thinker. It's a lonely road sometimes, but because of you, I can deal with it. Oh, well, because of you, I can help out others as well. And a huge thank you to you and everybody else who participated, both with super chats, the people who called into the show tonight, the people who call screen for us, especially Steph for agreeing to fill in with no notice when we had another problem with another call screener. Thanks to everybody who called, and to Phil where do they need to go to find you as we wrap this all up?
Any good podcast player, the Phil Ferguson Show. I talk about atheism, religion, money, politics, all the things you should not discuss with your family if you want to keep your family. But a lot of investment scams and cons, and I go through the mathematics behind them and how they can sometimes sound like they are going to make you money, but how they actually end up ripping you off. And when I started the show long time ago, I'm on episode 510, 515, 520, something like that. I thought I would run out of stuff to cover, but I've not. There's always a new con. There's always a new twist. From real estate to selling arts to investing in movies to buying a piece of an oil pipeline. The vast majority of it, if not a con, it's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a ripoff. And these people who are selling it make great big commissions. The companies make more money on the shit that you're selling you. And not only do I tell you things to avoid so you don't get ripped off, but I do provide practical advice, sometimes for someone how to start with $1,000 or $3,000 or $10,000, and sometimes a more advanced portfolio and portfolio strategies and portfolio designs, like I may talk to Mary about, of how you can build a portfolio that will protect you sufficiently well enough that you can still make most of the returns, but be protected in a short-term 3, 5, 7-year downturn. So there's a lot of thought, and I also have a book list that if you listen to the show, I'll tell you there's only 4 books you need to know. And if you can read those 4 books, you'll probably know more than 90% of all investors. Index funds. You got to get index funds. The Phil Ferguson Show.
There you go. Thanks to Phil for showing up again tonight. It's getting, delayed from last week, and everybody who tuned in and watched that show. A huge thank you to Seth and Forrest for agreeing to fill in last week. I heard it was great. The aspects of that I saw, I thoroughly enjoyed. There's a lot of stuff coming up on the transatlantic or on the network. And I just lost my little calendar thing. There we go. There's a lot of stuff coming up right here on the network, and the image there, it wouldn't fucking load for anything.
And while you're doing that, if anyone wants me to have a show, a direct call-in show where I can answer money questions or political questions, let Matt and the whole crew at the line know that there should be yet another show.
Transatlantic call-in show tomorrow, 2 p.m. Central. Arden and Josie Caballero are going to be here to take your questions. So you can touch her to real live trans people about why you're transphobic or why you're not. On the Sunday show this Sunday, myself and Seth will be doing the main Sunday show at 2 p.m. Central. So get all of your family members and relatives and preachers and everybody who's scared to call in any other time. I mean, Seth will be here. How bad could I possibly be? And we don't have anybody currently listed for next Monday's Skeptalk, but I know that Alyssa and Eve are set up for Chewed Gum, and that I will be back with, I believe, is it right that it's Ian Harris next Wednesday?
Tentatively, yes.
Well, tentatively, Ian, I've already said it. You have to be here now. You can't back out or anything else. So I just noticed it was in yellow. So on that note, thanks everybody. Don't forget, maybe you can go to linemerch.com to find more information and items for the show, and patreon.com/calltheline will allow you to find all the information, including the podcast, because the line has a podcast now. And if you're a patron, you're going to get access to that. Don't forget about patreon.com/atheist debates, but mainly just get ready to watch the next show in the line.